Hi, this is Lisa with Coping with Yarn, and I will be reading Chapter 4 of E.T. the Extraterrestrial in His Adventure on Earth, a novel by William Kotzwinkle. The extraterrestrial woke next morning not knowing what planet he was on. "Come on, you have to hide!" The space creature was pushed across the room into a closet and shut in behind its louvered door. In a few more minutes, the rest of the house woke. The creature heard the voice of an older boy, and then that of the mother. He huddled in the closet as the mother entered and spoke. "Time for school, Elliot." "I'm sick, Mom." The extraterrestrial peeked through the louvers of the closet door. The boy had returned to bed and seemed to plead with the tall, willowy creature. She placed a tube in the boy's mouth and left the room. The boy quickly held it up to the light above his bed, heated the fluid within it, and placed it back in his mouth as the mother returned. The old scientist nodded. "A trick known around the galaxy." "You have a temperature." "I guess I do." "You waited outside last night for that thing to come back, didn't you?" The boy nodded. The woman turned toward the closet, and the extraterrestrial shrank back into the corner, but only her hand entered, going to a quilt that lay above him on a shelf. She placed it upon the boy. "Think you'll live if I go to work?" She thought he was probably conning her again, but he had been having some rough nights lately. She hoped it wasn't weird drugs that were making him crazy. His eyes looked a little strange, but his father's eyes had been frequently dilated with delusions of one thing and another. Maybe it was hereditary. "Okay," she said, "you can stay home, but no TV, understand? You are not to disintegrate in front of the box." She turned and went through the doorway, then paused, looking down at the doorframe. "Has that damn dog been chewing up here again? I'm going to have his teeth capped with rubber." She marched off down the hall, but after a few steps she tilted as if a wave had washed over her. She steadied herself and felt her forehead. A faint ripple ran across it, like fairy fingertips touching her, but a moment later it was gone. She opened Gertie's door. "Rise and shine." The child sat up, blinking, then cheerfully put her legs over the side of the bed. "I was dreaming about the pervert, Mommy." "Oh, really? He had a long, funny neck and big, bulging eyes? Was he wearing a raincoat?" "He wasn't wearing anything." "It certainly sounds like a pervert," thought Mary, but she couldn't slow down for further speculation. "Time for breakfast. You go and help Michael." She continued onward into the bathroom for a brief morning wash with some ridiculously expensive soap that melted faster than ice. The bar, full size 2 days ago, was now a teensy-weensy transparent sliver. But a friend had told her it prevented wrinkles, blemishes, pimples, and warts. She lathered up, the soap vanished completely, and that was that. Another $6 bar of nothingness down the drain. She dried off, and a dream of the recent night rose out of her morning fog. A dream about a man, but a very short man, with an enormous pot belly and a funny waddling walk. Must be the pervert. She continued on toward breakfast, which was the usual blur, and then out of the house to the driveway, where Michael was practicing his driving, backing the car toward the street. "Here you go, Mom," he said, stepping out. "Here you go, Mom," he said, stepping out. "Thank you, dear," she said, getting behind the wheel and gripping it with her regular grim determination. She popped the clutch, gave it too much gas, and squealed away from the house, Michael cheering her. Elliot, hearing the departure, got out of bed and opened the closet door. The extraterrestrial shrank back. "Hey, come on out of there," said Elliot, extending his hand. Reluctantly, the old monstrosity waddled forward out of the closet and looked around. A wide variety of objects met his gaze, all of them queer-shaped, most of them plastic. The only familiar item was a desk, but too high for one with such short legs as his own. And did he think he might write a letter and mail it to the moon? "What am I going to call you?" Elliot looked into the great flashing eyes of the monster, where tiny blossoms of energy kept blooming and fading to be replaced by others. The creature was sensing his way around, and Elliot stood back to give him room. "You're an extraterrestrial, right?" The extraterrestrial blinked, and Elliot felt the great orbs answering him somehow. But the message was just a buzzing in his brain, as if a fly were inside his head. Elliot opened the bedroom door, and the monster jumped back, for the nasty little beast of the earth dog slavered on the other side. Stupid curiosity in his eyes, unfriendliness on his tongue. "Harvey, be good, don't bite or anything. Nice dog, nice Harvey." "Urgh, urgh." The dog's speech was lower down the communication chain than the boy's, sounding like a space cruiser stuck in reverse. "See, Harvey, he's okay. He won't hurt you. See?" A faint wisp of mist came from the monster's toe. Harvey put his nose into the mist and saw dog dimensions he wasn't prepared for. A great soup bone of light hurtling through the night, flashing with a howling sound descending into the ancient echo chambers of space. The dog cringed, his mind reeling. A fearful moan came from his lips, and he backed off, nose down. The monster came forward. "Do you talk?" Elliot snapped his fingertips up and down like a yakking mouth. The elderly scientist blinked again, and then moved his own fingertips, making galactic intelligence patterns, the cosmic supercodes of survival, 10 million years worth. Elliot blinked stupidly as the whizzing fingertips described delicate orbits, spirals, angles of physical law. The old creature dropped his hand in frustration, seeing that nothing was grasped, and recollecting again that this is just a 10-year-old child. "Well, what am I supposed to do?" The aged monster studied the situation. His brain was evolved so far past the boy's powers of comprehension, he could barely think where to begin. "I'm too specialized," thought the monster. Let me see. He tried to scale himself down to the crude bumblings of earth mentation, but wound up merely twiddling his digits. How could he hope to sign the great equations, those supreme insights born of wandering super segments of time? He could barely ask for an M&M. Elliot walked over to the radio, turned it on. "You like this tune? You like rock and roll?" A sound such as the space wanderer had never heard before was pouring out of the radio. Telepathically, he received the image of rocks rolling down a hillside, and he covered his sensitive ear flaps with both hands and crouched low. Elliot looked around, trying to think of other important things a creature from space should know about. He fished a quarter out of his bank. "Here's some of our money." The ancient traveler stared at the boy and tried to comprehend his speech, but the tongue of earth was a blur of dull articulation. "Here, see, it's a quarter." The object offered was small, flat, round, with a shiny coating, different hued from the M&M, but possibly this was even stronger survival food. He bit down. A piece of junk. "Yeah, right," said Elliot. "You can't eat that. Hey, are you hungry again?" "I'm hungry." "Let's go have something to eat." "Harvey," Elliot admonished the dog. "Out of the way." Harvey whined and tiptoed aside, and then followed Elliot and the monster downstairs to the kitchen. He crouched by his dog bowl and signaled Elliot that he wanted some Alpo to settle his nerves. A whole camful, which he would gobble down in one bite, but Elliot ignored the request, and Harvey had to settle for toothing the edge of his dish. Elliot was opening drawers, taking out the ingredients of his favorite breakfast. "Waffles," he said, and started stirring up some batter. "They're my specialty. You ever have them?" The elderly botanist watched as peculiar items appeared, none related to space travel. He watched great eyes revolving, taking in increments of incomprehensible action, except that a long tentacle of goo was flowing off the cupboard onto the floor. Harvey, in the matter of a wet mop, quickly tongued up the spilling batter, while Elliot managed to get the rest of it into the waffle iron. There, see? It's cooking. The old monster's nose twitched, and he waddled over to the waffle iron. It smelled delicious, like a large M&M. Elliot removed the finished waffle and opened other cupboards and drawers. Syrup, butter, canned fruit, and how about a little whipped cream to top it off? The monster jumped as the ozone moved, and the boy's hand erupted in a white stream. Don't be afraid, this is a good dish. Elliot put an M&M on top of the whipped cream and handed the waffle to the hoary old time traveler. And here's a fork. You know how to use one of these? The aged scientist looked at its sparkling tines. It was the best piece of machinery he'd seen so far in the house. Soft lights came to his mind. Yes, an object with 4 prongs. Attached to what? For an instant, he felt his escape mechanism flash, deep in his mind, where its image was slowly forming. Hey, you eat with it, see? Like this. Like I'm doing. The scientist fumbled, but managed to scoop up the M&M. He ate it and proceeded to the white cream below, tasting astounding chemical arrangements crossed and crisscrossed, their formula signaling him as he forked on, like eating one's way through a cloud. Excellent, excellent stuff. How about some milk? Here, have a glass. The fluid danced about, jumping out on his fingers, and his lip arrangement did not easily admit the shape of the glass. So he poured most of it on his chest and in a stream that ran over his heart-light area. Boy, you don't know anything, do you? The old voyager stared at the fork again, while spearing pieces of that crusty food. 4 tines, sounding, click, click, click. What's the matter? You make me feel so sad all of a sudden. Elliot's whole body swayed, caught in a high, powerful wave that had spilled over him. Emotions he couldn't comprehend filled him up to the brim, as if he had lost something incredibly wonderful that should have been his, always. Click, click, click. The aged creature had his own eyes closed in contemplation of the heights. Might there be an ear, immense distances away, listening to the song of 4 tines? But how? How could the universe be crossed by this small instrument? The elderly botanist wished he had paid more attention to the talk of the navigators and communication crew, for they knew more of these subjects than he. We're going to have fun, said Elliot, shaking off the sadness and taking hold of the old monster's hand. Come on. The long root-like fingers entwined with his, and Elliot felt he was leading a child younger than himself. Within the rippling wave washed over him again, bearing star secrets and cosmic law, and he knew the creature was older than he was. By a great deal. Something altered inside Elliot, turning just slightly like a gyroscope, and mysteriously rights itself. He blinked, amazed at the feeling that he was a child of the stars too, and had never done anything to hurt anybody, ever. He led the waddling monster back to the staircase. Harvey followed, dog dish in his teeth, in case any loose kibble might be discovered along the way. Elliot led the parade into the bathroom and over to the mirror, for he wondered if the creature had never seen himself that way, in a looking glass. See? That's you! The venerable star rover looked at the image in the crude reflective glass of Earth. His higher communication patterns were not visible, could not be seen rainbowing above his head in brilliant, subtle waves. The handsomest part of his visage was gone. Okay, this is a hand. Okay, this is a hand. Elliot held up the appendage. The space also followed suit, lifting his own in an elementary movement of the higher category, his fingers twinkling formulas of high-speed rocketry, interstellar shortcuts, and cosmic prophecy. Boy, have you got weird fingers. The child blinked in slow earth fashion, studying the digits themselves instead of their subtle signaling. Ah me, sighed the star wizard. He is dumber than a cucumber. This is where our waters come from, said Elliot, turning the faucets. See? Hot. Cold. How about that? Do you have running water where you come from? The old being took a handful of water and raised it to his face. His eyes shifted into microfocus, and he trekked for a moment out of habit into the world of tiny aquatic forms. You like water, huh? Look at this. This is great. Elliot turned on the faucets in the bathtub and motioned the extra-terrestrial to get in. Go on. It won't kill you. The archaic wanderer leaned over the tub, which was much like the study tanks of the great ship, where scientists might recline and explore the inner aquatic universe. In a fit of melancholy, he entered the tub. A bell sounded. The scientist jumped in his bath. Great feet splashing. Was he being secretly monitored by the water? Was this the laboratory, then in which his own waves were to be measured? Relax, it's just the telephone. Elliot left the room and the creature submerged himself into the tub of water. Calmed by its flow, comforted by the dance of the microorganisms, he closed down his breathing apparatus, so the standby system, and stretched out, completely underwater. He entered atomic focus and began reviewing the water molecule. Watching its latent heat force, could he use it somehow to aid himself? Harvey the dog edged cautiously toward the tub. Some of his worst moments had been in there, during the annual flea bath. He peered over the edge at the present occupant of the tub, who seemed to have more liking for it. Harvey was reminded of a large old snapping turtle he once attempted to mug. That meeting had turned out badly, a terrible bite on the nose being the final outcome. Thus the dog's reluctance to do more than just gaze at the submerged guest. Was Elliot going to shampoo him? Elliot returned, looked down, and yanked the creature up. Hey, you can drown doing that sort of thing. Harvey saw there had been no shampooing. The guest apparently had no fleas. Are you part aquatic elf? Asked Elliot. As long as he's not part snapping turtle, thought Harvey, and placed a paw gingerly over his own nose, just in case. Here's a towel. You know how to use one. Towel? The veteran of the supernova stared stupidly at the item, his own skin having a water-repellent sheath. He took the towel, looked at it, looked at the boy. Here, dry yourself off, dumbbell. The boy's hands touched him. Earthly fingers, tinged with healing components, entered his aching back.
Thank you, young man. That is very kind of you.
See, we each have our own towel. That's mine, Elliot pointed. That's Michael's, that's Gertie's, that's Mom's. That one used to be Dad's. He's down in Mexico. You ever fly there? The monster blinked, receiving a sad wave of feeling from the boy's communication band. The boy stepped closer and spread his arms like wings. You fly all kinds of places in your ship, right? You have a ship? The ship, shining softly, appeared in space being's mind, lavender light beaming around its hull, where the ancient inscriptions were carved. His own light of the heart gave a tiny glow in response, and now the boy's sadness was his own. You keep that towel, said Elliot. That's yours. We'll mark it E.T. for extra-terrestrial. He touched the monster again, amazed by the texture of the skin. Another wave went through Elliot, and he knew that the creature was older than Methuselah. Older than old. You're something like a snake, too, aren't you, boy? You are really weird. The scientist felt the boy's energy going doop, doop, doop down his inner channels. Most interesting, these earth forces, crude but kindly if you gave them half a chance. The monster signaled back with his own fingers, explaining the structure of the atom, the love of the stars, and the origin of the universe. You hungry again? How about some Oreo cookies? Harvey nodded and wagged his tail. Oreos were fine by him. Not his favorite food, but a dog who eats the ends off of brooms is not fussy. He toothed his dish and held it out to Elliot, who walked on by, leading the monster. All right, thought Harvey, I'll just tag along. He followed them down the hall into Elliot's room, where cookies were dispensed to the goblin. Harvey growled and thumped his dish. You're too fat, Harvey. Fat. The dog turned in profile to show his ribs. But his ability to call on Elliot was slipping. The monster was Elliot's pet now. Harvey sought what nutrition remained in one of Elliot's hiking boots. Across the room, Elliot was opening the closet door and addressing the monster. We've got to fix you a place in the closet. Make it look like the space shuttle, okay? With everything you need. But the elderly interstellar was staring up at the skylight of the room. Stretched across it was a painted dragon, wings spread outward and soft shafts of sunlight shining through it. You like that? Here's some more. Elliot opened a book on the floor, and he and the monster looked at it. These are goblins. These are gnomes. The monster's eyes went through a series of focusing arrangements, including one that revealed the origin of the fibers composing the paper, and back out again, to the painted, pot-bellied little creature, not altogether unlike him, staring up from the page. Had other travelers been stranded here long ago? Elliot left the creature to look at pictures and began arranging the closet with pillows and blankets. He had not stopped to ask himself why he was harboring the monster or what it meant. He had been flying on automatic pilot without questions, without doubling back on himself, without trying to duck out. He knew this thing had been handed to him from the stars, and he had to follow it or die. You'll like it in here, he called through the door. His mind and body moved almost without effort, signals pulsing inside of him. He couldn't know that a cosmic law had touched him, gyrating him in a new direction. He only knew he felt better than he had ever felt before. Harvey the dog did not feel the same metamorphosis of being. Gnawing on butt heels did little for his soul, still less for his stomach. He contented himself with the thought of biting the mailman on the ankle, an event scheduled for mid-morning. Elliot went down the hall and came back with a bowl of water, which gave Harvey momentary hope. But the bowl was placed in the closet with instructions to the goblin. That's for you and the whole thing in your command module. Elliot lined up a number of stuffed animals at the mouth of the door. That's a protective camouflage. You stay in line with them. Nobody will know the difference. The bewildered old super being stared dumbly at the arrangements. Harvey stared too, a faint desire moving in him to gnaw the head off a teddy bear. Elliot stepped forward with the disc lamp. Light, see? He switched it on, and the harsh glare of its crude interior assaulted the Voyager's super-sensitive eyes. He backed up into a record player, his arms scraping the needle across the record. In spite of the unpleasant scratching sound, soft lights went off inside him, and again he was filled with developing blueprints for escape. Using a fork and something that turns like this. I've just bumped into it. It will turn, and it will scratch a message. He gazed at the record player, seeking his solution there, as his own inner wheels turned, bearing all that he knew of communication devices. He stumbled around, looking for other bits of hardware. He opened the desk drawer, tumbled its contents on his feet. Hey, said Elliot, take it easy. I'm supposed to keep this place neat. The wanderer explored other parts of the room, dumping, tossing, seeking. He must examine it all, and it was all so strange from the primitive planet's groping creativity. Where was he to find his inspiration? He stared up at a poster tacked to the wall of a half-naked Martian space princess, clad in loose bits of shining metal. He contemplated her for some moments. Her ray gun, her helmet, her electric boots. You like her? Asked Elliot. The old Voyager slowly lowered his hands, and then and out again, describing the more classic form of beauty. The downward sloping pear shape. We don't have too many like that around here, said Elliot. Then he put his hand to the old monster's elbow and led him gently toward the closet. You stay in there, okay? Stay. The time-worn traveler shuffled into the little enclosure, and he who had once supervised the plant life of the grandest mansions of space was being closeted with a skateboard. He sunk down. Where was his ship? The wonder of the universe, now that he needed her. He received the sun and light of a beacon, deep in space, sweeping toward him, searching Earth from incalculable ranges. See, said Elliot, there's even a little window in here. He pointed to the small square of glass above the monster's head. And here's your reading lamp. He switched it on. Okay, I'll see you later. I'm going to buy some more cookies and things. The closet door shut, and the Voyager squinted at the harsh light from the lamp. Then took a red handkerchief from the closet shelf and placed it over the lampshade. The light softened to a pastel pink, a glow like that of the mothership. He must signal it, must let his crewmates know that he lived. The image of the fork came into his brain again. 4 tines trailing in a circle. Click, click, click. All right, that concludes chapter 4 of E.T. Okay, love you all, and where's my finger? Oh, there.
Be good.